Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for coming out to the Tuesday, November 19th, 2019 Finger Lakes Regional EMS Advisory Committee meeting. I know you guys have busy schedules, lives outside of this. Thank you all for attending. I'm going to ask all of us to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we have minutes that went out from the previous meeting. Okay, anyone would entertain making a motion, or if they have any changes they'd like to show? Motion from anyone? Seconds?
I received the minutes. I read them.
There you go.
I wasn't here to comment on whether they're accurate.
Where's our sergeant in arms?
Maybe I should have
Okay. Anyone opposed? Okay. We're going to get right into standing reports. Program Agency Coordinator.
Progress continues to be made on the conference, which is February 22nd and 23rd. We are considering adding a Friday evening session as well, dealing with like HR type issues and policy making issues. So more to come on that piece of it. We are just been busy with some routine issues and discussions with the executive committee. Other than that, keep mine short and simple.
Excellent. FLCC Administrator.
Fall classes are heading towards the end. They were tested in December, a couple classes just in January. Spring classes are in the process of being sent out now. Current permanent class is still up and running and will continue till May of 20. And then applications are out and coming in because the deadline is December 1st for the permanent program to start in January.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
All right. I had the opportunity to speak recently at an EMS management conference. It was a wonderful conference. It was very poorly attended. I hope they do it again next year. And please, folks, keep your eyes and ears open. If they do that again, it was well worth attending for all levels, from basics on up, administrators, physicians. It was a great, great conference. And Jason made a lot of work into that. Those that attended, I think, really appreciated it. Hopefully we get a better attendance on it next year. I'm also going to keep mine short and sweet. Associates, Dr. Talbot, Dr. Click, any comments, anything you guys want to bring up over the past few weeks or months? All right, we're going to move on because we do have a busy morning. We may end up having a shutdown Remac kind of early. We'll see what happens. RSI and RSA.
Yes. So we had the RSI committee set up a class on November 12th, the day before my birthday, at 8 o'clock at University Flight. Out of the 21 students that were initially approved for the RSI class, 10 attended. Some of my, there was some conflicts, but one of my big concerns is that there are a number of students that did not reply to any emails or anything to say they were coming to the class, so they were automatically withdrawn. The lecture portion was good. Dr. Surratt did a great job. I'd like to thank Dr. Surratt, Dr. LeMay from New York, Dr. Glick, and Dr. Brecker for their assistance. We will be setting a date in the near future for the actual credentialing portion. I have to get with you and Dr. Surratt. RSI committee, we're going to meet briefly after this meeting. We're also going to meet hopefully in December. Unfortunately, due to poor attendance and poor attendance in terms of students and poor attendance in terms of agencies. If you remember correctly, part of being an RSI agency is that you need to participate in assisting with classes, lectures, and training, etc. And the majority of the RSI agencies did not participate. A big thanks to Jim Lee, and to Kevin Lightfoot, and to Matt Sproul for helping me facilitate this with the helpers. But we're probably going to have to reinvent the wheel, or at least make the wheel a back to this body in January with some modifications to the RSI program. With the biggest modification being agency medical director driven. With the caveat that it'll be different than the last time we tried agency medical director driven, in that we are going to facilitate a yearly lecture, a yearly practical, and a yearly written that every RSI provider has to take in order to remain credentialed in the region, which was different than the last time, and with the hopes of having a new RSI class every 2 years if interest is needed due to dropping out of current RSI providers and just new RSI students and your agencies.
Well, I applaud all of you guys, Dr. Surratt and everyone who's involved. You guys have done a really good job. The proof is in the results that we see when we review charts that have had RSI. And the ones that are not getting RSI needlessly. I'm disappointed to hear those numbers. I mean, we had people that showed interest that we turned away. It is disappointing. So I hope you guys come up with some concepts that we can talk about early next year and improve on that. Again, for those that attended, I'm sure they got a wonderful experience, and we will hopefully get some good takes out of that, but that is disappointing. And thank you all for what you've done with that program.
Mike, does this body need to approve the billing that we set forth, $100 per agency?
It was approved
It was
last
approved.
month.
For this year?
Yes.
Okay, so that was a question.
When it was approved, it was approved.
Yeah, and I'm holding off on bringing the names of the students until we have a date tested. I don't want to have a blanket approved upon completion. I want to do it and have approval if that's okay with everybody.
I think they need to be billed up front for the class because you're still spending time. And
That's
money
why
and energy.
and that's why I gave you the invoices today. Plus, we also have to compensate the doctors.
Yeah. One thing I would ask is that we develop some sort of compensation schedule for the physicians. So we're not just saying, oh, this class, we're going to pay them $300. Next class, we're only going to pay them $100. Let's have some sort of set schedule as far as what is expected for the compensation of the physicians going into the
And that's something, it did take a little while to get a compensation fee for agencies to get in, so we'll work on that. We'll have that.
And maybe consider some prerequisites that every candidate has to come forward to be able to be eligible.
We did,
Have that.
we did, and we still have that. I can provide you with the guidelines. I can actually send it to you now if I need it.
We have that, and there were several providers that were on the fence that we discussed.
Correct.
Based on those criteria, so we do have that one in place, but I think having the breakdown of what the reimbursements are is a very good idea. and
Perhaps it's
necessary.
time to recirculate that document as far as, what the criteria are and the application process, the whole process.
The whole process.
The whole
right.
process as a whole, not, because we're adding a bunch of pieces here and there. Let's put everything into one document, one process, and have it, all together.
And thank you to Mercy Fight for putting up with those guys. That had to be a struggle.
Anytime.
All right. Advanced practice.
Hold on.
Do more?
Nope, I was in bad practice. Jason was there. I just had a new computer and tried to get used to it. So the common theme for both on my committee and the ALS committee is poor attendance. It seems like every time we have an ALS committee meeting, it's the same agencies, and it's very few. I know that this body has mandated that every ALS agency sends a representative to these meetings, and we have identified that maybe the agendas are repetitive or poor, and there's no interest. But at the same token, maybe there needs to be some teeth behind not attending meetings.
I believe that's written into the policy already.
I believe it is too.
We just have not enforced it.
Yeah.
We've tried to be pleasant about this, and it's not working.
I agree, and I know that the RSI committee, back to my committee, we have that in our, and I'm gonna send it as soon as I'm done here, that if you don't attend certain of the meetings, privileges will be pulled. Perhaps something needs to be done in terms of ALS agencies especially bigger agencies that choose not to send representatives to meetings.
I would say the whole agency's up to the same, it doesn't matter
Yeah, I
how
would
big
say
or small.
Yeah,
You shouldn't be under an additional punishment if you're a big agency compared to the small one. If you
I
want to
agree.
be ALS stuff, you should be held to the same standards across the board.
I agree 100%. And we can keep track of agencies that come and do not come, and we can provide that as well. So,
Provide that information, we will put together a letter as a first step in that direction. And this is a super important concept. We have to have communication between the Remac, the docs, the Remac, the members of the Remac, and the providers, and that is the conduit. And if they're not going to allow that to happen, we will take action. That is clearly allowable under law currently.
so we recognize that, like I said, we recognize that maybe we're oversaturating in terms of meetings. So the participants that were there decided that instead of holding a meeting every other month, we should be quarterly.
And you're going to combine the meetings.
We can, meaning the ALS is on our side, we can. But for the ALS committee, we decided that if we meet quarterly, there will be more opportunities to have an agenda that agencies would like to come, and there'll be more of an opportunity for agencies to learn something.
Well, ALS committee has been tasked, or advanced practice been tasked with SCT protocols revision,
Yep.
which is a huge project.
And I guess we're just waiting on Mercy Flight's protocols to be approved, correct? By the state? Right? Yes.
And if they're not approved,
Then we'll work on it.
I think you should be working on it regardless.
It
The
was also-
reality is that
Well, it was also
they
brought
will
up
be
that-
approved.
Yeah, it was also brought up that some of these agencies that aren't SCT, like myself, may not have a vested interest in SCT protocols. Maybe the agencies that are SCT would take the lead on it. But what we decided for is our March meeting, it's gonna be on the first Wednesdays of March, June, September, and December. That still correlates with Remac, so we can make Remac reports. The March meeting will be two topics: creating performance bundles. Some examples are on scene to first EKG, on scene to first medical control, time to first notification, etc., like that. Monroe County FLREMSC has bundles for a number of things, including chart style, blocking completions, and all that. We would like to improve on theirs to create something for ours. And then the second thing is clarifying and updating regional documentation standards. When we have standards and bundles, we all need to be on the same page. We need to clearly define what time it is. So I don't have one idea of what time is, is it on scene or is it when it dispatched to first EKG? We need to have something clarified. We also need to clarify regional documentation standards because, as we all know, QA is an ongoing concern that we have in this region also. And we need all the agencies to be on the same page so they know what they're looking for, they know what they have, and that they know they can handle internal and what they need to handle to this body, to the QA body. Because again, I feel like we haven't had a QA meeting in a long time, and is it because our providers are that good, or agencies are either do not have QA program, or they're hiding it, or don't feel it's as important as it should be?
I would say yes.
And I agree, and that's a concern. So hopefully by doing this, it will not only give all the agencies a reason to come, but it'll also strengthen and improve our region, our paramedics, and in turn this body.
There's some big tasks there. I hope you guys are up for it.
Yes, we are.
Okay. We shall see.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Mercy Flight Central.
Not much to report at this point. We do have one upcoming education available on December 3rd at 6 p.m. And for emergencies, that'll be at our base, 1.5 CME hours.
I just wanted to mention too that at the last time that we met over the summer, not only did we become CAMES accredited agency, we also passed 15,000 successful missions. So.
That's amazing. Very nice. Congratulations on both. You guys good? Do we have anyone here representing LifeNet? Thompson Hill?
We have our
Sure.
former EMS meeting, that's coming up in December. And we invite all the outside agencies to attend.
Has that been advertised yet? I haven't seen it. Get it out. All right.
Have you ever try to make a general calendar for everything within our region? Like a Google calendar where like people can post things to the calendar, because then people can have it automatically refresh with their phone and things will pop up. Then they, different agencies can post events, we can put reminders, advanced practice committee tomorrow night.
Can you bring a concept to us in January?
Sure.
And then work with John on it? I think it's a good idea, bring it to the Remac with a working concept, or, someone else is doing that already, that we could swipe and use.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be easy enough to create, Google Calendar account.
See what you come up with. Open Springs. Other than being busy.
Busy. Got a lot of help yesterday from, Finger Lakes folks, brought a lot of folks other places for us, which helped things out. Other than that, and most everybody else has been bringing us plenty of business, so otherwise not a whole lot new and outside exciting for us.
All right. Fairly so.
Just within my own agencies, the QA process, I've noticed some cases where patients with lateralizing deficits for stroke are getting triaged away from primary stroke centers. All of the agencies, just to review, the pilot that was run with the pre-hospital LVO screening, everyone understands that was just a pilot, and there's no protocol set that would transfer patients away from primary stroke centers. Does anyone have questions about that? Any of the other docs? You guys?
We had to dispel that myth probably a few months right after it stopped. I'm not aware that we've had bypasses, but there should be no bypass for stroke at this point. Is anyone aware of that going on right now still? Because they really...
Not as much recently, but I would say probably like 6 months ago, looking back, it was happening a little more. There were a few cases, but not up to recent though.
Thank you. Do you think we need to put something out to the agencies?
I think this leadership in this forum, maybe we can disseminate the information, just remind the
And
provider.
then if there's a question, they should be calling.
That control.
Yeah, and I think as more and more studies come out, numbers come out, that may still swing back here again.
I
So-
agree, yeah.
So rather than trying to confuse people anymore, it seems like right now things are going fairly well. We should try to fix that. York Way?
Nothing significantly new right now, still. Was where we were, working on finalizing contracts, but, basically using all agencies for transfers out, and things are, going fairly well. I think we're all feeling the pressure of moving patients between all of our institutions, and, winter time is coming, so we're gonna have less options. I think we're all very well aware of what we're dealing with right now. So transfer times are getting tougher.
On the topic of transfers, and this has come up over and over again, blood transfusions. Everyone is aware that although right now I don't believe anyone is actually accredited as a transfusion service, blood transfusions in an emergency can be transferred at paramedic level, as long as the blood bank makes notification to Wadsworth that it's occurring. So it can be done.
Say it again, as long as the blood bank.
You need to have your blood bank, there's actually a form that can be downloaded off the Wadsworth Center website that they fill out. They just let Wadsworth know that this was an emergency and the physician in charge prescribed blood to be transfused and routed to the receiving hospital. And it can be done at the paramedic level.
Wadsworth is the lab that the state uses.
They contract with Wadsworth. They're not a state-run facility. They're contracted with the state. These are the same guys that do CLIA, all the glucometry, and now they also are doing transfusions. They have apparently been spoken with, and they're not as, they've become a little more lenient towards that happening. And I believe when the final procedure comes out, it will be a little bit more possible for services to become a transfusion service. So,
Have you heard of what was the pressure or anything like that? Because right now, as it stands, you know, there's nothing legally out there to allow us to do it. And
Yeah.
so that's our issue right now.
yeah, we were approached at the CMAC and FLREMSC last year by 2 nurses from Wadsworth. We never spoke to a physician or a transfusionist, and they were relaying that it was not at paramedic level to be done, not at critical care level to be done. Basically, even nurses could not do it, which I think put the fear into the nurses that if they did go, that they could be held liable. So it was really kind of nasty, and I think when the 2 nurses were escorted out for their safety, I think the message got across that this was a bad thing. And they came back and said, well, you know, in an emergency, you can do this, and we're working on a procedure that's not quite as difficult as what we first came up with. But when that's going to happen?
They have nothing in writing. I've reached out to them multiple times, asked for names. I have some names. They're not calling. They're not calling back. And so, you know, unfortunately, lawyers are involved in this, and you know, they want it in writing.
We've been working on this at the medical standards, CMAC and FLREMSC level for almost 10 years.
Yeah, and they said they were going to have it finalized in the early summer as well.
Of which year?
The Wadsworth. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So Wadsworth, if you're listening, pay attention. As I hear more, I will let this body know. But right now, in an emergency, do what's right for the patient. We don't have our attorney sitting here, but I think he would agree. I think that will go for him, that we have to do what's right for our patient, end of story. And I think that will always.
Jack, on that note, Canada Emergency Squad is actually in the process of seeking the approvals to do the blood transport. They've already been in works with this, been in contact with Wadsworth, been in contact with Thompson Hospital and their attorneys, and they have a process that they're establishing right now that is going to be going through the approval process. I think they're looking just for support from the Remac at this point, and then so that they can move forward. And then when they get their completed packet of information and jump through all the hurdles, they will they'll come back to the Remac and supply that information to us for final approval. So we're going to pass around if the docs can make sure that they all get one before everyone else. This is just a letter from Canada Emergency Squad requesting our support in this one.
So this is one step in the process that you guys are taking.
Correct.
You're not.
There's a lot of steps.
I mean, multiple agencies
they've made it.
approached me trying to do this, and they haven't, you know. So if they have any success, you know.
Finger Lakes is in the process. I don't know. Are you guys going through? It's a difficult process.
Yeah.
It's really onerous. Again, in an emergency, I think we need to do what's right for our patient. And yeah, I agree. It's very frustrating. You know, I've been sitting on those committees for almost 10 years, and we've come up with good protocols, at least what we thought. So and then when Wadsworth got their hands on it, they basically shredded it. So
Jack,
keep plugging along.
Jack, in the plea for efficiency, can we make a general response rather than a specific agency response, rather than have Finger Lakes come back, Mercy Place Center come back, and Newark come back, and Lions come back, and every other agency come back and do these things? Can we essentially approve a stop letter that says for any agency, we approve, and I'm happy to use the wording that Ken Diggs used, for any agency, so that it doesn't become something that they're waiting on the Remac in the summer for approval for 4 months, or cancel meeting, delays it another 2 months. Is there any way of just approving it en masse?
As long as they meet the criteria put forth by Wadsworth and
Jack, I think the state is spelling out it needs to be specific approval by the Remacs per agency in order to move forward with it. That was from the operations chief at the DOH as of yesterday.
I mean, I guess the thing is that, so Canandaigua has brought a lecture, which no one's read yet, and we're looking for approval.
No,
So,
they were looking for support,
Okay.
not approval. Support of the process. Because
that have
the
to
process
be
is an
agency
extended
specific as well?
process. I'm sorry?
does the support have to be agency specific, or can we just offer support to every agency?
We can offer support, but every agency that elects to do this needs to come back to the REMAC.
Yeah, I can read right from policy 1506. It says the notification process in there. Quote, the ambulance service should make written notification to the REMAC.
That's when I think they're
that's just written
finalized,
notification.
because-
Yeah.
Nothing more than that.
That's the only thing it says in here as far as REMAC goes.
So if we move on Dr. Surratt's motion and we approve it, all they have to do still is make written notifications to the REMAC. I mean, the reality is, no one's gonna get through this process by the end of the summer.
Right, but I think that the REMAC should support the concept of blood transfusion during interfacility transport across the board.
And that's your motion.
That would be my motion.
Second, any discussion? I think we should support it.
Let's take it.
We may still have to go through agency by agency, but what was just read to me by Mr. Decker says that they just need to make a written notification. They don't need approval, they need written notification, correct? Is there anything beyond what you just read to me?
That would be the
Fine print?
interpretation of the point.
No, that's the only thing they make reference to is this whole policy for REMAC. So unless John got something else,
Yeah.
Just the point that it is a policy statement and not a regulation. I'll just leave that at that.
All right,
So-
any further discussion?
You may vote.
You have to do more discussion,
Well, you gotta vote on your motion, right?
unless you have discussion.
No.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Okay.
And Canandaigua has fulfilled their requirements by making a written notification to us by policy 1506.
So the next thing I have is the town of Galen, for the Clyde Galen Ambulance Service is looking, after consulting with their paramedics, they're requesting to change the high level of their certification, authorized down, from critical care level to the 8 EMT level. So they're looking to downgrade their level of care. So this is coming to the REMAC for approval.
Unless there's any discussion,
It's just a notification.
just a notification, do we need to approve it? John, do we need to approve it?
I think for the purpose of it, let's just go through the approval process.
So,
It's not
I mean-
depriving the town of Galen from ALS
Of course
services,
not.
they're just utilizing Wayne County ALS as a ALS provider, should the county provides.
it's a move towards more efficiency too.
Yep.
All in favor? Any opposed? And obviously, they have the option of coming back at any time should they wish to move back up.
Absolutely.
The only one old business, John, you want to mention real fast, physician credentialing?
Yep, so the bulk of the hospitals being Newark is, according to the best of my knowledge, is completely credentialed as far as your providers. Clifton is good. Geneva has, according to my records, just 2 to do it. And then Thompson has 6 to do it. They continue to lag behind after repeated emails. So as far as that, the process is, I think we've got the bulk of our providers already. So I think this project is, you know, as close to being complete as we're ever gonna get.
Get there. Thank you. Folks, you might recall from the last Remac meeting that there was an issue that came up with a paramedic and a medical review board. And there have been some significant changes in that situation. And unfortunately, as much as I hate to do this, we're gonna need to talk about going to an executive session and only have the Remac members and a few others in session. And we're gonna have to call this Remac meeting closed rather early. Again, I would thank all of you for coming. I hope you guys have a very safe winter. Be careful out there, and we will see those of you that are not staying for the executive session in January.
Jack, specify who you want to stay. The executive board.
All members of the Remac, all physicians, executive board,
Yep.
and all regional support staff. Who else do we want?
The seating members to Remac.
Seated members to Remac. Okay, so EMS or BLS, ALS. Jim should stay as the agency. Yeah. Anyone else?
Jack, I would say anyone that's involved in the MRB should.
In what?
The MRB.
Oh, and actually, they can set on the MRB. Yeah. I think that. Folks.